Welcome to Dallas Divorce Talk. I am Dawn Budner here with Carla Calabrese of the family law firm Calabrese Budner. And we are going to talk to you today about a topic that Carla will be describing.
Well, we're going to talk to you about emotionally intelligent divorce. And we, in our own minds, are the pioneers of emotionally intelligent divorce. But we actually have trademarked that. And we really believe that what emotionally intelligent divorce can do for you is, we would say to you, not only can you survive divorce, which we all know is devastating, but with emotionally intelligent divorce, lawyers at your side, we believe you can thrive.
Carla, that was an excellent intro. So what we decided to do today is actually going to be a two-part episode. And we want to explain to you first, what is high conflict divorce and why is it in your best interest to avoid that and instead choose to have an emotionally intelligent divorce, and what does that mean for you? So in the first half, we're going to talk a little bit about what we observe goes on with clients who are in a high conflict divorce situation.
Right.
And Carla, you've been doing this for a very long time.
Yeah, don't say how many years.
Yeah, not that long.
Don't say how
She's
many.
very young. But share with us what you see in terms of high conflict divorce. How does that look?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I think, divorce is so difficult for anybody, right? No matter who you are. But I think what I have seen in high conflict divorce is that there really isn't anybody that steps in and helps the client kind of get an emotional center. So
Right.
it's this constant bickering and fighting between the lawyers. It's what I have seen as in high conflict is someone comes in pretty vulnerable, and instead of taking that client and saying, okay, how can I address your emotional needs? As a lawyer, what I've seen is lawyers that sort of take advantage of that, and they take that situation with that client and they send them down a path that is fraught with fighting, arguing, court hearings, fighting over the stupidest little things that shouldn't cost $5,000 and $10,000 to resolve. Okay?
Right.
And so, high conflict divorce is driven, sadly, I think, mainly by the pain that people feel in divorce and a misunderstanding, a complete misunderstanding that you need to go to the courthouse and duke it out in order to be successful. And so what we're trying to do with emotionally intelligent divorce is help people understand that divorce is 80-90% emotional, a much smaller piece legal and financial. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to follow all of the experts out there who we really believe in, Psychology Today, psychologists, therapists, to say, stop harming families.
Right.
And start helping them address their emotional needs.
And so we've heard it called the emotional divorce, and the way that I understand that is kind of everything that's going on during a divorce for the people involved, except for the legal piece, because the courts really can only address the legal piece, and it's a very small portion of the overall situation facing clients in a divorce.
For sure.
And what we have decided to do and have spent a lot of time and effort doing is learning about emotional intelligence and how we can obtain and solidify those skills for our lawyers and our entire office, actually, and how that can benefit clients. So we're going to talk about that today. And in order to do that fully, I do think it's helpful to talk a little bit more about what you just
about
mentioned,
high
Carla.
conflict, because I do think people don't really understand. I think fundamentally society, the public, I really don't think they understand how difficult it is for them to go into a process that is, court-based. and not client-centered.
Right.
And so I know Dawn, Dawn does a lot of litigation in our firm, bless her heart. And I've been doing collaborative divorce for over 20 years. And collaborative divorce is a way to do emotional divorce, emotionally intelligent divorce. It's not the only way. But so I know we have a weekly firm meeting on Wednesdays, and, we'll sit down and talk about, we have, our whole team is in there, 11, 12 people, and talk about, our clients and our clients' cases. And it's really stunning to watch and listen to me talk about my collaborative cases or the cases I'm doing in a settlement track with emotionally intelligent tools, and, what goes on sometimes in the litigation world that we can't control,
right,
as much as we'd like to, right?
Absolutely.
So,
and
Dawn, you've got lots of things you could share with our audience.
Yes, definitely. And so the thing that I want to make clear at the outset, I guess two things. One is I do, not to be condescending about non-family lawyer, folks that are involved in this process. I don't care how sophisticated and intelligent a client might be. Most people are not going to have a divorce every day. So if you're not practicing in this area of law, there's no reason that you would have the knowledge base that we have from watching over and over again what's going on. And that's the reason that clients who are vulnerable, again, no matter their level of sophistication, when your family's falling apart, even if you're the one who asked for divorce, you will not escape the emotional turmoil of having your dreams, demolished, essentially. Right. There's loss, and there's no way around that experience for people. So when you come into it, some folks show up and they are desperately afraid. Say you've got a woman who maybe she had a big job but then got married and decided to stay home with her kids or step back and has focused mostly on raising kids and keeping the family running. That person is absolutely petrified.
Petrified. That was the best word. Yeah.
And I have several people I'm speaking to right now that I'm just trying to be a sounding board for them as they're going through before they really get ready to face what's happening. Right. So, and I just feel for them. It tugs at my heart because I know they're in a terrible place of fear and uncertainty. And so what can happen sometimes is that clients who are afraid, that's sort of the place from which they're operating when they're looking for a lawyer. And so they might think, well, I need someone who's going to fight for me.
The bulldog.
Yes, I need the toughest, meanest lawyer out there. And so that's who they go look for. Or they think, my spouse is probably hiding money. My spouse is going to fight so hard and play dirty, so I need to find somebody who can do that. And the only thing you can count on with that way of thinking is that you are going to be involved in long, drawn-out, conflictual litigation.
Bloodbath, essentially.
It's a bloodbath. And your estate, I hope you have
your wallet.
Tens of millions of dollars handy because, otherwise you're really going to feel the impact of going down to that courthouse. And like you said, Carla, you can have, a hearing that you go down for and it ends up costing you $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, depending on what it is, more. And so that way of thinking is just operating from a place of fear. And so the first thing I would want to say to people is be sure you do your research because that is not the only way. It's not the best way. It's the worst way, in my opinion. Yeah. And so I come from a background of, commercial litigation. I've had, big trials, hard-fought trials. And when I came to work with Carla, it was natural for me to be focusing on litigation because that's what I've done forever. I've also done collaborative divorce since, 2005.
Right.
And sadly, I have many reasons to intersect with the world of psychology, but we won't get into that today. But with regard to litigation, that's kind of what I'm good at. We all like to do things that we're good at, but I am the loudest one on the block saying that is not the best way. That's not the best path for restructuring your family.
Right.
And there are many other options. So, can I make more money in a big battle at the courthouse than I can in a collaborative divorce or a settlement tract divorce? Yes. But my approach is if I do a good job for people, they'll tell other people,
Right.
and I'll have plenty of work to do. I don't need to go squeeze every penny out of my clients.
Right.
So, I think Carla and I bonded so much because we're just kind of joined at the lung on this stuff. We just really come from the same place in seeing the impact on kids. If they say close to 50% of marriages end in divorce, think about more than 50% of kids in the world are children of divorce.
Right.
And its impacts can last a lifetime depending on how the divorce
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's not hard to, learn about how much high conflict divorce impacts kids. I mean, just, Google high impact divorce.
High conflict
Divorce and the impact on children, and it's clearly been researched for years and years, especially in the last 30 to 40, and it's very clear that they suffer more with self-esteem, relational issues in their own marriages
Right.
and relationships. They are really they struggle with the emotional aspect of life, and
it's not just emotional. The groundbreaking study that was done in the 80s tracked kids of divorce for 30 years, I think, and essentially, that news came out, and every parent who'd been divorced, was horrified because they measured the life path and trajectory of these kids on like 5 different scales, and they were dramatically impacted on all 5 of the scales.
I wonder if these are the same, because I was looking at this Psychology Today article, and it was talking about basically this parental conflict can have an adverse effect on your children's mental health, adjustment, success in school,
Yes.
future relationships, self-esteem, and self-concept. So what
Kind of big stuff.
parent would want to take their family through a high conflict divorce? I think if they knew this and understood it, I don't think they would do it, for sure. But I think there's there's unfortunately a bit of a delusion that sometimes we hear when you and I were talking about this the other day, and you were saying, no matter who, I'm in this nasty divorce and I'm trying very hard to keep it calm and use all my emotional intelligence skills. And my client, you ask them, how are your kids? Oh, they're fine.
It's always the worst cases where the parents say, I'm not doing very well, but my kid's fine.
Yeah.
And so, the truth is that's probably not the case. Your child will be impacted by your divorce, but it is what it is. I think the message that we need to take from it is not just for every parent who's in a situation of divorce to feel shame and guilt and all that. That's not helping anybody. What the research seems to show is that, yes, your child will be impacted by the divorce, sorry, but the degree of conflict is the pivot. That's the most important thing. Whether you stay married or get divorced, parental conflict is what damages children all the way through their lives.
Right.
And that is something you can manage, but only if you're in a place where you've got your eyes open and you are in your thinking brain, not in your fight or flight brain, which is, frankly, the mode of operation for clients in high conflict divorce.
Right.
And, that's what I was going to say when, someone talks about high conflict divorce. What do you picture? And to me, the common thread is that people are... Sorry, my phone is over here ringing. I'm going to put it down on the floor. Sorry. I think in high conflict divorce, what I see, and I kind of just prepare myself for, is that people this is, if not the worst time in their lives, it's right up there. And so I need to be the voice of calm. I need to compensate, if you will, for the fact that person is really struggling. And, we hear about the fight or flight and the lizard brain and all that, where basically, it was developed, millennia ago to deal with, I guess, the bear running up to eat us, which is not typically a danger anymore, although I think there have been some people eaten by bears, but that's another show. And so if you're living with that cortisol running through your body and just reacting because you're just trying to make it through the day, you're really not in the thinking part of your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens? Well, what happens is that folks are not able to make good decisions. They're not thinking through things from a place with a broad perspective. They're not self-aware or reflective. They're just moving through the best they can.
Right. And it seems like, what they don't get is their desired result, typically. What they want is something that is going to, they ultimately want to be in some ways healed and or in a better place. I mean, nobody wants to come out of this thing, in shambles, right? But when you're involved in a high conflict divorce, it's impossible really not to come out in shambles. So their desired result and they don't get it with a high conflict divorce.
Well, they don't. I think that when you're in that mental space, you aren't capable of thinking big picture or logically about your ultimate outcome. So instead, you're just responding. So if you've got a spouse that is punishing you, that is filing motions, that is saying bad things on the record, making accusations, which is what the court process, frankly, encourages in a sense, right? It's a fight to the death. I mean, there's a winner and a loser. And so this person that was your family member not so long ago, you are now, motivated to tear down. And so there's no way when that's going on, I don't think, to actually begin processing through your grief. You're still making new reasons to be grieving, right?
Yeah.
You're just not in that space right now. And, at the end of the day, if it keeps up, you've got additional damage that you are either going to address or carry through
the rest of your life.
The rest of your life, possibly.
Right.
And so we do have, we need to say that in a lot of cases, divorce comes about because of, a mental health challenge by one client or the other. So sometimes folks come to us they're already struggling. But even for people who are fully functioning and doing well, this thing is a train running over you. I mean, it's tough for everybody. And so I guess, the foundation for what Carla and I are trying to do starts with just recognizing that fact that we're not just dealing with someone who needs to go get, a legal document at the courthouse, right? This is huge, and we want to address it.
Yeah,
for
address
what it
the
is.
emotional needs of people.
And so how do we do that? Oh, wait. I'm sorry. I'm moving on because we're not allowed to talk about that yet. That's part 2. So, well, should I let you talk about it, Carla?
It's up to you.
So I guess, I just want to make sure we've been clear enough on why there's all this pain and dysfunction, even if folks want the divorce, believe it's the right thing, and that is such an integral part of what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, I've never had a client who actually, initiated the divorce that didn't feel tremendous pain, guilt sometimes, but pain, sadness. So it doesn't matter whether you're being left or you're, the person who wants out. I think that what we're trying to say is that these divorces are mainly emotional issues, emotional situations, more so than are they legal or financial. They definitely are. They have those other two pieces. That's why collaborative, if I can put a little, what am I trying to say?
A little plug.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Plug for it, because Collaborative has a mental health professional who's neutral, a financial professional who's neutral, and 2 collaborative lawyers. And so, what you do there involving the mental health professional is you interject that, somebody to address the emotional part of the divorce, which in my firm belief is mostly what you're dealing with. But back to,
Well, wait, before you move to something else, so much of the training that we've done in collaborative divorce is about recognizing, I hate this, elephant in the room, but that's such a, perfect way to describe what a lot of times there are obstacles that prevent the parties from agreeing on things that they might otherwise be able to agree on, but they're not identified. And so in collaborative, we do a lot of training among all the professionals, including the lawyers, so that we can identify those issues. And for example, sometimes an apology can lead to just immediately to a settlement of the case, because that is what is holding people up, is their emotional need is not being met. Their spouse cheated on them or whatever, is on the list. And people have needs. And if you don't meet them, and certainly the court system is not in any way able to facilitate that.
If you apologize, it's an admission of guilt.
Right.
So that's why you don't get it very often in the traditional or the high conflict. But in collaborative, again, collaborative I think is a example of an emotionally intelligent divorce if done right.
Right. An emotionally intelligent process it can be, but again, we're all human in the process. The professionals are human, and so we all have to keep doing our work and continuing to check in on ourselves and make sure we're not pushing our own agendas or triggers or that sort of thing in that process too, because that does happen sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so we're about to do part 2 in a second, but we'll give you a teaser, even though we know there's no way you would ever not come back for the second part. So talk about how we as a firm kind of have recognized some of what we're talking about here, that the emotional needs of our clients are just spilling out over the top of everything else that's going on, and how we try to approach that, if you will.
Well, gosh, there's just so many ways, right? There's so many ways that we, over the last, for me, many, many years, have
Carla's saying that because I am quite a bit younger than her. I have a lot of experience, but that's a distinction that she wants to make.
I think what we have done in our firm, first and foremost, is we recognize that as a lawyer, you have to really shift your paradigm in order to help somebody emotionally through a divorce. You can't be a basket case yourself. Okay, you can't have your own, amygdala hijacked. You can't be acting out your own family of origin stuff. Okay, happens every day. I see that every day. Like I could almost.
Carla, stop criticizing me on Dallas Divorce Talk.
Not Dawn. But so what we do is we first help our team understand, what it is to be emotionally intelligent, and how do they take themselves from, like, we all come into the world and don't really even understand what that means, and how do we start working toward that goal of being emotionally intelligent so that we then can be in our best place to help these people. And so we have actually a coach that we have worked with many, many, many hours for our entire team, who has taught us what this means to be emotionally intelligent. And so that's one thing that we do that helps our team learn about, regulating emotions, not taking the bait. So much money is spent in litigation cases with, you have seen, but 2 lawyers fighting each other, sending long emails up to the tune of, $500, $600 an hour, basically arguing about crap that really has nothing to do with this couple. And I see this all
absolutely.
the time.
You think you do, sister.
Yeah.
Let me just tell you. The thing is, that I want to say about that, litigation is fighting over. Now, wait, let me make one exception before I make a broad statement. Sometimes there are legal issues, and the parties just aren't going to agree until they get a ruling on a legal issue, character of property or something like that. I would venture to say that there's probably a way to work it out outside of court anyway, to come to a reasonable solution. But for a lot of people, because still most people are going to court and handing their lives over to a third party to make the decision for them. So it is what it is. But so much of what it takes to get to the point of getting a decision is unnecessary. It's fluff. It's what you're saying. It's, grandstanding, stirring the pot, making trouble. I mean, this is your property. So why do you have to spend, $50,000 to get a copy of the, documents? It's really, it's a lawyer's game. The lawyer wins.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
So that is pretty troubling. But I do think, from being in the thick of it, that a lot of the lawyers are not intentional about, stirring the pot, about creating conflict. It's just, they're so used to it. It's just another day on the job.
Yeah, for sure. I think there are a lot of lawyers that are, their heart's in the right place. But even when I see how they operate, you realize that it's just kind of rote. That's just how
it's unconscious. It's unconscious. And so we are trying to stand on our little mountaintop and shake everybody's shoulders and say, wake up, because we are looking at this a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And so with that, I think we're going to take a pause. You can go and get a drink if you need to, or, pull into the gas station if you need that kind of break. That's fine. And we will be back before you know it to talk a little bit more about exactly what is an emotionally intelligent divorce.